She fired me in front of the whole office just to prove she could. 6 years of loyalty erased with one email. But what she didn't know was that her favorite client, the one keeping her company alive, had already offered me a job. 3 weeks later, I walked back into her boardroom, not as her employee, but as the person in charge of ending her career. This isn't just a story about office politics, it's about power. About what happens when the person you underestimate becomes the one writing your downfall. If you've ever been betrayed by a boss, disrespected after years of hard work, or told you were replaceable, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay till the end. Because this isn't just revenge, it's a corporate execution. There's something surreal about being fired before your morning coffee, especially when you've given 6 years of your life to a company that treated you like family, right up until you became a threat. My name is Clara Jensen, and the morning my boss tried to destroy me, she didn't realize she was setting fire to her own empire. It was a Monday, 8:42 a.m. The office still smelled faintly of burnt espresso and recycled air. I was sorting through campaign analytics when the HR assistant appeared at my cubicle. "Clara," she said, avoiding eye contact, "Miss Brighton wants to see you. Now." My stomach dropped. Marian Brighton, Vice President of Marketing at Hawthorne and Finch Media Group, a woman who could make or break careers with one glance. I followed her assistant down the long glass hallway to her office. When I walked in, Marian didn't offer a seat. She just stared at me over her designer reading glasses, the kind that screamed, "I'm rich," and perpetually unimpressed. "Clara," she said finally, her tone smooth and sharp as cut glass. "Care to explain this?" She turned her monitor around. An email was open, my email, confirming an interview with Atlas Digital, one of our rival agencies. The room tilted slightly. I was exploring opportunities," I began carefully, after being passed over for promotion 3 times. "Enough," she cut in. "We don't tolerate disloyalty here." I blinked. "Disloyalty?" Marianne smiled, the kind of smile that never touched her eyes. "You took a half day for a doctor's appointment. Turns out you were interviewing with the competition. That's grounds for termination." I stood there, stunned. "Marianne, I've worked here for 6 years. I've built half our client base, and yet," she said, reaching for a form on her desk, "you're no longer a good fit." Her voice was calm, rehearsed. "Security will escort you out. You can collect your things." The world went silent. I wanted to scream, to argue, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled. "Understood," I said softly. "Thank you for the opportunity." Marianne blinked, almost disappointed. She expected tears. Instead, I extended my hand. "Good luck, Miss Brighton." Her fingers hesitated before meeting mine, cold, uncertain. And that's when I knew. She wasn't firing me because I'd done something wrong. She was firing me because I'd finally realized how much I was worth. As I packed my desk photos, a small cactus, years of effort reduced to one cardboard box, my coworkers whispered in disbelief. "Clara? Fired? She carried the entire green tech account." Exactly, the account that brought in 40% of Hawthorne's quarterly revenue. But in Marianne's world, competence was currency, and I'd started making too much of it. The walk to the parking garage felt longer than ever. By the time I reached my car, the initial shock had worn off, replaced by a slow-burning anger. 6 years. 6 years of late nights, unpaid overtime, covering for underperforming execs. And maybe next year, promises, and this is how it ends? But as I sat there, staring at the steering wheel, my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. Clara, this is Daniel Ross from Atlas Digital. Are you available to meet today? We'd like to finalize the details." I exhaled, a small, sharp laugh escaping my throat. Marianne thought she'd ended my career, but she'd just cleared my schedule for a better offer. The meeting was at 2 p.m. downtown, in a building that looked like a glass sculpture against the skyline. Atlas Digital wasn't just any agency. They were the kind of company Hawthorne and Finch dreamed of becoming. When I arrived, Daniel, the CEO, greeted me personally. He was sharp, kind-eyed, The kind of leader who valued results over politics. Clara, he said, shaking my hand firmly, I heard about this morning. Unfortunate, but maybe timely. Unfortunate, I repeated with a dry laugh. That's one word for it. Daniel smiled. Let's just say people who undervalue talent tend to lose it. We'd be lucky to have you. He slid a folder across the table, an offer letter. Director of Strategic Accounts. Salary, double my previous pay. Benefits, bonuses, stock options. My throat tightened. This is generous, I said quietly. He leaned back, eyes kind. It's what you should have been earning years ago. For the first time in months, I felt something that had long been missing: validation. That night, as I placed my cardboard box on my apartment floor, I realized something profound. I'd been fired. I'd been freed. And I wasn't just going to move on. I was going to move up. Because what Miriam didn't know yet, what no one at Hawthorne did, was that Atlas Digital's biggest new client was Green Tech. My client, the one I'd built from scratch. And starting next Monday, I'd be managing that account again, the table. She thought firing me was punishment, but I was about to teach her that some bridges don't burn, they explode. Power doesn't change people, it just exposes what was already hiding underneath. And in Marianne's case, power had turned her arrogance into a weapon. When she fired me, she thought she'd erased me from her world. But she didn't know I was already building one inside hers. My first day at Atlas Digital felt like waking up in a parallel universe. The office was everything Hawthorne and Finch pretended to be: open, collaborative, alive. There were no fake smiles, no whispered politics, just people who actually liked their jobs. Daniel introduced me to my new team, a mix of analysts, designers, and strategists, all sharp and ambitious, but refreshingly humble. This is Clara, he said. She's our new director of strategic accounts, and she'll be leading the green tech expansion. The room buzzed with polite applause. Someone handed me a welcome coffee. Someone else smiled and said, "We've heard stories about you." I smiled back. "Good ones, I hope." "Only the impressive kind," one of them said. I almost laughed. Oh, if you only knew. By mid-morning, Daniel called me into his office. He closed the door and handed me a file. "Take a look at this," he said. "It's the Green Tech transition brief. We're officially taking over their account from Hawthorne and Finch next quarter." I froze. "Wait, they're cutting Hawthorne?" He nodded. "Apparently, their service quality plummeted after a senior account manager left. Some kind of fallout. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" I smiled faintly. "I might." He grinned. "Good. Then you all did. Then you already know what we're up against." Good, delicate. That night, I stayed late at the office. I read every page of the Green Tech report: performance charts, deliverables, client complaints, email logs. What I found made my stomach twist. Hawthorne hadn't just slipped, they'd lied. Campaign results had been falsified, metrics inflated, invoices padded with non-existent expenses. It was textbook corporate fraud, and the signature on every falsified report, Marianne Brighton. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the name like it was carved in stone. She hadn't fired me because I was disloyal. She'd fired me because I was close to discovering this. Marianne Brighton, treed. And now, from the other side of the battlefield, I had every weapon I needed. The next morning, I brought the documents to Daniel. He skimmed through them, eyebrows furrowing. "Jesus, this is bad." "Worse than bad," I said. "They've been double-billing clients for nearly a year. If Green Tech finds out, Hawthorne will lose every major account they have." He looked up slowly. "And you're sure Marianne Brighton approved these?" "Every last one." Daniel's tone shifted colder now, calculating. "All right, Clara, play this carefully. Don't expose them yet. Not until we're ready." "Ready for what?" I asked. He smiled the kind of smile that said he already trusted me to finish the job. To make it public, professionally. For the next few weeks, I did exactly what I did best. I watched. I attended client meetings with green tech executives, learned every detail of their frustration, and quietly fed them results that made Hawthorne look incompetent by comparison. Emails started trickling in, complaints from green tech to Hawthorne, audits from their finance team, performance reviews citing suspicious reporting inconsistencies. Every message was another thread unraveling Marianne's carefully woven empire. And I never lifted a finger. All I did was let the truth surface drip by drip. But then came the moment I didn't plan for. 2 weeks into the project, I got a LinkedIn message from Marianne. Clara, I've heard Atlas is taking over the green tech account. Congratulations on the new role. Just remember this industry is small. People talk. I stared at the message for a long time, almost laughing. Even in defeat, she was trying to intimidate me. So I typed back, "You're right, Marianne. People do talk, especially when numbers don't add up." I didn't wait for a reply. The next morning, Daniel forwarded me an internal email from Green Tech. Subject, quote, SAS. Urgent potential ethics violation, Hawthorne and Finch. Attached were screenshots of falsified reports, the same ones I'd flagged weeks ago. Apparently, Green Tech's CFO had requested a formal audit of Hawthorne's billing history, and just like that, the match had been lit. 3 days later, I got a call from an old coworker, Jenna. She sounded panicked. "Clara, it's happening. Hawthorne's under investigation. Finance found discrepancies across multiple accounts. They're saying Marianne might have doctored invoices." I swallowed a surge of adrenaline. "And the board? They've suspended her pending review. Everyone's freaking out. Half the staff are quitting." I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The empire had finally begun to crumble. But I wasn't done yet. Because Marianne's greatest sin wasn't greed, it was arrogance. And people like her don't learn from quiet consequences. They learn from public ones. The next week, Atlas Digital was invited to present at the National Marketing Summit, the same industry conference Marianne had chaired every year. Daniel turned to me during our prep meeting. "You should lead the presentation," he said. "You built the green tech turnaround. You deserve the spotlight." My heart raced. The stage Marianne once ruled would now belong to me. The irony was poetic. That night, as I rehearsed my slides, I added one final line to the end of my speech. Something subtle, something she'd understand. And as we've learned, I rehearsed aloud, integrity isn't just good ethics, it's good business. It wasn't an attack, it was a mirror. A quiet, deadly one. She took my job, my dignity, my career. Now, I was about to take her legacy, live, on stage in front of the entire industry. There are moments in life that don't just change the story, they rewrite the genre. For me, that moment was standing backstage at the National Marketing Summit, staring out at a sea of faces, executives, journalists, clients, investors, all waiting to hear from the rising star of Atlas Digital. And I'd spent years speaking on the bath from my personal life, and, I didn't really feel like I was there, and I was alone, and I actually was still living with my dad, and it was not over. I wanted to be alone, and welcome to me as an actor, not looking for me as hire, and this is not being in my catalog, but really showing the time of work that I had for what I was calling for the rising star. The ballroom glowed under the spotlight haze, hundreds of people murmuring in anticipation, and in the third row, sitting stone-faced in a black suit, was Marianne Brighton. Of course she came. She couldn't resist. The queen always attends her own execution. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner, paler, her hair pulled back too tight, the confidence in her eyes replaced with something colder, fear disguised as control. The event host's voice boomed across the hall. Please welcome Clara Jensen, Director of Strategic Accounts at Atlas Digital. Applause, camera flashes. My heels clicked across the stage like punctuation marks to an ending only I knew. Good afternoon, everyone, I began, smiling easily. For years, we've been told that data is power, that numbers don't lie. But numbers only tell the truth when people do. A quiet ripple moved through the room. I advanced the slides one after another, case studies, performance graphs, metrics. I talked about transparency, accountability, client trust, all the values Hawthorne and Finch had abandoned long before they fell apart. Halfway through, I saw Marianne shifting in her seat, whispering to the man beside her, the interim CEO, if the rumors were true. Perfect! Because my next slide wasn't just a presentation, it was a detonator. On the screen flashed a graph labeled Green Tech Comparative Campaign Data FY 2022-2023. Side by side were two bars, Hawthorne and Finch, inflated, falsified, bleeding credibility. Atlas Digital, clean, verifiable, transparent. The audience leaned in. And then I said the line that sealed her fate. Integrity in reporting isn't optional, it's survival. Companies that manipulate numbers for short-term profit often end up losing everything, including the trust that built them. I didn't say her name. I didn't have to. Everyone in that room already knew which company had been exposed for fraudulent billing practices just weeks earlier. A murmur rippled through the audience. Cameras flashed again. And in the corner of my eye, I saw Marianne stand abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor like a warning shot that came too late. She stormed out. After the presentation, the applause was deafening. Reporters swarmed, asking for interviews. Daniel caught my arm, grinning. That, he said, wasn't just a presentation. That was an execution with PowerPoint. I laughed. She had it coming, he nodded. And you made sure everyone knew why. Later that evening, the event trended across every business outlet. Number 2 Atlas Integrity topped LinkedIn. Hawthorne's board issued a public statement the next morning. Following a thorough internal investigation, Miss Marianne Brighton has been terminated from her position effective immediately. They cited financial misconduct and ethical breaches. The once formidable company she ruled had collapsed into scandal and stock loss. The press had a field day. Every article used the same image, Marianne walking out of the summit, face pale, eyes down, avoiding cameras. It was poetic. Public humiliation without a single illegal act from me, just the truth, amplified. But my favorite part came 2 weeks later. Daniel called me into his office. When I walked in, he slid a folder across the desk. Green Tech just signed a 5-year exclusive deal with Atlas, he said. They want you to oversee all campaigns. They're doubling the budget. I blinked. That's incredible. He smiled. It's more than that, Clara. They specifically asked that you be the face of their partnership. Apparently, you symbolize everything they lost with Hawthorne, everything they lost because of her. That night, I went home, poured a glass of wine, and scrolled through my old inbox. One unread message caught my eye, sent the day after she fired me. Still unopened until now. From Marianne Brighton, subject, final note. I hesitated, then opened it. Clara, I hope one day you realize this is for the best. You're talented, but not leadership material. You're too emotional, too idealistic. Too emotional, too idealistic for this industry. Sometimes failure teaches us where we belong. I read it twice. Then I laughed, a quiet, disbelieving laugh that turned into something colder. Leadership material. Too emotional. Failure. I hit reply. Marianne, thank you for your feedback. I used it to become your replacement. Warm regards, Clara. I hit send. The next morning, Daniel called again. Apparently, the board at Hawthorne wanted to meet with me, discreetly. They were restructuring and needed external consultation from someone familiar with their former leadership. In other words, they wanted the woman who took Marianne down to rebuild what was left. The irony wasn't lost on me. I declined politely. Some ruins, I told Daniel, are better left standing as warnings. By the end of the month, Atlas Digital had absorbed 2 of Hawthorne's biggest clients. Half their employees applied to join us, and the Green Tech partnership became one of the most successful campaigns in the company's history. Every success story they wrote now had my name attached, and every mention of hers was followed by a scandal footnote. That's how legacy works. It isn't about who gets there first. It's about who's still standing when the dust clears. She took my job, my pride, my peace. But now, her career was over, her empire gone, and her name replaced with mine. All that was left was the fallout. The part where she'd have to live knowing I became everything she said I couldn't. Revenge always feels different than you imagine. It doesn't roar. It hums quiet, steady, certain. Weeks after the summit, my life had settled into a rhythm of long hours, meetings, and the kind of calm that only comes when you know the war is over. But endings aren't tidy. They're not cinematic fade-outs with swelling music. They're smaller, quieter, like a final door closing softly behind you. It was a Thursday morning when I saw her again. I was walking into a cafe near our office, one of those bright glass-fronted places that smelled like espresso and ambition. I ordered my coffee, turned toward the exit, and froze. Sitting alone by the window, in an ill-fitting blazer and a look of exhaustion that didn't suit her, was Marianne Brighton. She looked up. Our eyes met. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she gave a small, bitter smile. Well, if it isn't the prodigy herself. I could have walked away, but something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, made me stop. "Hello, Marianne," I said homely. "Didn't expect to see you here." She stirred her coffee with slow, deliberate movements. "I'm consulting now, freelance. It's different. That word carried so much unsaid. Different from power, different from control, different from the life she'd built on manipulation. I took the seat across from her. I heard about the audit's final report. Her mouth tightened. "Yes, well..." They needed someone to blame. I tilted my head. "You mean someone who forged numbers and pocketed client funds?" Her eyes snapped up. "Don't pretend you're pure, Clara. You played the game too. You just played it better." I didn't argue, because she was right. Revenge is a game. But unlike her, I never cheated. I just waited. I stood, placed a few dollars on the table, and said, "You once told me I wasn't leadership material. You were right. I'm not your kind of leader." She stared, silent. "I don't burn people to climb," I continued. "I build so well that people follow." And with that, I walked away. No parting jab, no victory speech. Just silence, the kind that says, "I've already won." That night, as I looked out over the city lights from my apartment window, I thought about how far I'd come from the woman clutching a cardboard box in that cold office hallway. Back then, I'd thought power meant being respected. Now I knew real power is being impossible to erase. A week later, Atlas Digital hosted a charity gala for women in leadership. Daniel insisted I give the keynote. When I stepped onto the stage, I felt none of the nerves I'd had months ago. Just a quiet, steady pride. I used to think betrayal was the end of a story I began, but it's not. It's the edit that makes you rewrite the entire plot. Laughter. Nods. I continued, letting the words fall steady and deliberate. Every person here has been underestimated, dismissed, or told they weren't enough. But here's the truth. The moment someone tries to erase you, they hand you the pen to your own comeback. Applause thundered, and somewhere in the crowd I saw faces light up, women who understood exactly what I meant. After the gala, I walked alone to the terrace overlooking the city. The night air was cool. The streets below glowed like circuits connecting 1,000 stories, each one lit by someone who refused to stay small. I thought about Marianne probably sitting in some small co-working space, drafting emails to clients who'd stopped replying. Not because I destroyed her, but because her own choices did. That's the thing about revenge. You don't have to swing the sword when you can hand them the mirror. In the months that followed, Atlas expanded rapidly. Green Tech became our flagship account. Daniel made me vice president of client strategy. My name, the one Marianne once tried to bury, was now on every conference agenda, every award nomination, every industry list that used to feature hers. People started calling me the woman who rebuilt integrity into marketing. I didn't correct them, because that's exactly what I'd done for the industry and for myself. Then one day, while cleaning my desk, I found the last remnant of my old life, my Hawthorne and Finch ID badge. The photos showed a younger version of me, tired but hopeful, a woman who thought loyalty would protect her from ambition's cruelty. I smiled, slid it into an envelope, and mailed it to their now vacant headquarters. No note, no return address, just the ID. A silent reminder that sometimes ghosts come back, not to haunt, but to teach. People think revenge ends with their enemy's downfall. It doesn't. It ends when you stop thinking about them. Marian was gone, not because I destroyed her, but because I grew beyond the world she once ruled. That's the real victory. Not watching them fall, but rising so high they can't even see where you went. So yes, she fired me. She humiliated me. She underestimated me. But she also built me, unknowingly. She sharpened my resolve, my instincts, my silence. And in the end, the woman who said I wasn't leadership material taught me how to lead myself. If you've ever been betrayed at work, remember this. Power changes hands every day. Stay calm, stay sharp, and let success be the loudest revenge. Like, share, and subscribe for more true stories where karma doesn't whisper, it signs the promotion letter.